Hey, future self. I ate. And if you lose the recipe in a year, I'm going to leave it here right now because that turned out well. And I feel like the world needs to know that exists. Okay, write this down, self. It was like not quite a cup of rolled oats. So I topped that off, if I remember right, with sliced almonds. And then I think I did the other 2 cups, a mixture of walnut, hemp seed hearts, flax seeds, and sesame and sunflower seeds. And then, so that was my dry. I think that's everything. It's 3 cups. It makes up 3 cups of dry. It's supposed to just be oats. These are just no big cookies, but holy crap. Oh no, there were also like cranberries. I think they were probiotic cranberries too, dried cranberries. I hope the liquid didn't kill the bugs. And then the liquid part is I ended up doing like half the liquid because I wasn't using all oats, so I knew, the nuts and the seeds aren't as absorbent. So I did like a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/4 cup of milk. And a cup of peanut butter. You could use almond butter, any butter. And cocoa powder. How many? I think it was 1.5 tablespoons. I wanted more, but it was good that I didn't put more in, I think. Did I put more in? Shit. Put more in. Just make sure to use salt and vanilla. You don't forget the salt, because the nuts I used were like baking aisle nuts and were not, salted or roasted or anything. So if you're going to use shit tons of cocoa powder, do at least a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And when you're doing your vanilla, save it for the end so that the heating process doesn't hurt it. And don't forget it. Like it's so, oh Alicia, when you forget that last, you get so excited and you get in your creator mode. You gotta go and make shit. You forget to put in the vanilla, and god damn it, that's when the chocolate, you don't enjoy it as much. People forget. And like, if anybody else is eavesdropping, guys, did you know that a lot of people, if you give them like a cotton ball with like all these different like essential oils and smells, they did this with kids on I think it was an OPB documentary I was watching, could be way off. Anyway, it's not just kids, it's people. When you smell like orange, it's orange. When you smell mint, it's mint. When you smell bubblegum, you know exactly what that is. But when you smell just vanilla on like a cotton ball, a blind, you'll say chocolate a lot of the time. People will say chocolate. And vanilla is a huge component in a lot of, especially the like Hershey's and like the chocolate that people in my country. Anyway. So you don't want to boil it. What was the sugar content? It was way too much. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it on a public video. It was a shit ton of sugar. It was way too. It was like equal amount to the peanut butter. Gotta figure out a way to. And I added maple syrup because I'm a sugar person. I'll refrain from using more colorful language than that. Okay. I was gonna make myself relax and do what I always do, and that's watch or like listen to audiobooks or lectures or I don't really do a lot of like hobby stuff, unfortunately. Like if I have a question about the fish tanks or a cat question or mushroom foraging or gardening or whatever, music, I'll do it. But like the bulk of the time that I spend in my like relaxing kind of like it's on in the background, it's gonna be like a lecture or a book. But it has like slowly become almost exclusively my subscriptions are people that give free tarot readings. And so that's fine. That's great. Like obviously I got it. I'm raising my hand right now. Like that's what I spend the bulk of my background noise on, and there is a lot of downtime. So I guess I want to drive home like how much time you've spent doing this, Alicia. You just realized this. So you were forcing yourself to sit down and listen to Stephen Fry give a lecture, and something about Batman. I mean, we had to stop I tried listening to Stephen Fry read Paddington Bear, and I still, like, my brain just starts cranking. Like, maybe in a couple weeks or in a few days I'll plug him in again and I'll try to listen to Paddington, but like even just trying to fall asleep to a children's story, which is usually gonna do it, Harry Potter and the like, no, when I listen to that, when I hear that man's voice, it ignites my brain. And I hope he doesn't, if he ever sees that or whatever, I hope it doesn't make him sad. I love you, Stephen Fry. So I was, like, just chill out, listen to this lecture, and it didn't work. So my brain's firing off all this shit, and I sit here and I'm like talking to the camera, and I lose my train of thought, and I get embarrassed, and then I go and eat, and I gather my thoughts, and while I'm doing that, of course, like, I can't just eat. I can't just sit down and eat. I think that's one of my main problems with eating, is that, like, somehow my distorted brain has equated, like, the need to produce or be productive or you're a bad person with don't waste time on eating, even though everybody's telling me, you gotta eat in order to do that other thing. So that's one thing we're self-therapizing. So we ate, and as I'm eating, I'm like writing down all this crap that, like, I don't want to lose my train of thought again. It's funny. Like, this is the feeling or the sensation, because it's a sensation. It's not just an emotion or a mood. It's a visceral sensation of this experience that you're having right now. And I'm sure that it's obvious to a trained eye, and obvious to people who know me well enough. My speech, it kind of gets fast and gets slow, and like in these videos, I think I'm more stimulated. I'm sort of like there's a fire under my ass to perform, in a sense. So like there's that anxiety, that kind of like verbal word vomit that happens. But I think also, like, I know that this is the thing that we called hypomania for a long time, and it's funny to me, because it just shows how far divorced I have always been from a sense of trusting myself or like being okay the way that I am. It's always been so just not something that occurred to me at any point. Anyway, so this is what you've been treating for almost 20 years. Is it that bad? Like, you're making these videos. Yeah, it's a lot of personal content. Yeah, it's a lot of possible, setup for embarrassment, possible setup for like massive backlash or failure. Like, also very possible absolutely nobody will watch it and it's not a big deal. So whether or not this is a problem, and I this is be your own therapist thing, right? I'm working through my own shit. I'm finding out my own content. I have to figure out, is this a problem? To what extent is this causing distress in my life? It's usually the crux of how they diagnose things in mental health. To what degree? And that's one of those things that you really can't quantify. You can tell a doctor my pain level is maxed out at a 10, but they might not understand that's just what that feels like for you. That's how bad period cramps are for you. So it's not out of the doctor's gonna treat it at, like if they take that as like the only bit of information, a maxed out pain level means something's seriously wrong. But unfortunately there are things like period cramps that can max people out on a pain level, and it's the norm, and it's just how it is, and you can set your watch to it, and it doesn't need medicating, doesn't need fixing. It will go away. It's not forever. Yeah, it sucks, but you cannot go to work like that for 4 or 5 days. Yeah, that doesn't need to be medicated. So does this need to be medicated? Is this causing distress to the extent that you needed to take 350 or 400, whatever it was, of this, or God, 10 years? And I guess the answer is really no. And I don't know why it's so hard for me to like fess up or face that, because I'm trying to, I think this is something that has been drawing closer and closer into my awareness during my quiet moments. Like, I can't put my finger on like where does that come from? Where does that sense of dis-ease come from? And I think it comes a lot from having an electric current running through me that when it's on and I'm in creator mode, it's on. And when it's not on, and it's not always on, it's more like the force of gravity or inertia or something. It's like the forces of nature, like the way electrons and positrons and everything move, like at the quantum physics level. It's like that for my emotional world. And it feels like it does. It feels like an electric current, and it's powerful, and it's like I can't not. Like, I can't just sit down and listen to something. I can't just, do anything other than what needs to come out. I don't know how else to say it. And then like when the current is not on, that like powerful, it's not like blocking my will. It's like shaping my will. It's just the life force. It's just like the flow of the creative movement of life force, the animating force in my body. It has a surge, and I can't not produce. Maybe I'm producing burnt pies every day, and producing a big pile of garbage, but when that's going, I'm doing, and then when it's off, like, it frustrates a lot of people in my life because they know that I can be productive. They've seen it. And they feel like I'm just making excuses. So I guess the point of all this video making is just to discover being my own therapist is gonna be about being curious and learning about what makes a dysfunction, or learning about things that I don't like about myself, or developing, like developing a curiosity and a focus towards developing the skills that gets me closer to being willing to look at the things that are too hard to look at right now. So it's about curiosity and study, not so much about diagnosing and treating. And I guess I kind of like it doesn't the variable on off like electricity crazy, like it feels out of control, it feels crazy, it doesn't feel right, and I don't think it's in our culture and like the mainstream as like a normal okay thing to have. So whether it's bad enough that it's interfering with your functioning and you can't be in society, there's just it gets to the point where there's a really fine line to like how when do you medicate, and like when do you start turning that into like the equivalent of a spiritual bypassing for a person who's trying so hard to be improved as a person or developed as a person that they've invested fully into a belief in spirit to the point where these free readings that they're getting online are it's the God's honest truth and spirit is speaking directly to you through this person. It's like the other side of that. It's so you can get kind of bypassed, you can get kind of knocked off track by like, with the best of intentions, I want to get better, so I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to take these pills, I'm going to go to rehab, I'm going to focus on myself, I'm going to start again from scratch, I'm going to take the pills, I'm going to go to therapy, it's like you can't get away with doing that for long in this society. You can't get away with making your life's meaning about actualization. It's just not allowed. Like, you don't have time in the day to have a full-time job and be curious and open and have the bandwidth for maxing out on that kind of development. That's where I'm at with that right now. It's this variable, powerful electric current energy, I think, is more universal than I have wanted to believe, because I wanted to otherness myself. So I think that these surges of life force, creative energy, I think it's something that everybody experiences to one degree or another. Like, we're not all the same, but where it starts becoming a problem is when that doesn't fit with the kind of jobs that you have access to, when that doesn't fit with just what it takes, to be seen as a good moral person in society. A lot of our Western morals have to do with a consistency, a sense of steadfastness, and health and power have always kind of gone hand in hand. So if you're vulnerable or unhealthy or showing any kind of a weakness, that is hand in hand with like on a moral failing level. It's very much in our culture. So I didn't see it, and I don't think that we're gonna have guaranteed income and until well after my lifetime. I don't think I'm gonna see it in my lifetime. So I don't think that it's gonna be allowed to be eccentric and to the point where you're poor. Like, you can't get away with that in this society for long. Like, you can do it, you can live on the street, but you will die sooner that way. You'll die faster that way. That's just how the world is. Like, you don't get to be eccentric and poor. So that's when I guess the medication kind of starts coming in. The problem with that, though, is that, Alicia, you did that and it still didn't help you. And the doctors told you it's because you actually don't have the thing that this fixes. Like, you don't have, you know? So it's like you're okay, but you're just not okay for society to work for you. Like, you're not okay to work in society. Like, you can't work for society the way you are. And they haven't made a pill for that yet, you know? So I guess that something is wrong with me idea, that something needs to be treated idea, that I came into the world. I think it just like was hand in hand with my ego. It just kind of came online together. And it just, it has shaped things more than I know. And I need to accept it. I need to make friends with it, this variability. A lot of schools of thought will say, you know, they'll shrug mostly to the bio side of the spectrum and say, you know, a mood disorder or a mental illness, you know, whether it's personality based or, you know, chemical imbalance, and they try to like divide those, but there's so much overlap. So like psychiatry has a lot to do with trying to decide like, where do these overlap in a way that I can just go like this and like, you know, so that medication doesn't need to be brought on, or is this need, you know, is there a physical need for dumping chemicals into a closed system that we don't know how it works necessary. A lot of dabbling in some dark stuff, if you ask me. So I tried that whole route. So that's, I think that's really the crux of where the otherness came from, is it's really, it's not this like mind-boggling transcendental soul spirit, whatever they call it, like walkabout self-discovery thing. It's just, it's the variability of your creative current, and that doesn't go over well in society. That's eccentric. That's you just don't fit. It's not like complicated. So, you know, I tried to listen to Stephen Fry and didn't work. So I wanted to talk about how learning to read the deck, the tarot deck, as a means of personal emotional development can really be a great tool. Because I realize that I spend so much time listening to these lectures and listening to people read cards online to fill in that background space as like a form of self-soothing, because I feel so isolated, I feel so alone. So I have these people talking about you know, hypothetical life situations, and it's just blah 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 blah. It's like a gossip, but without anybody attached. It's just like, it just occurred to me like it's on par with masturbation, but it's like a social self-soothing mechanism. It kind of creeps me out, but I do like the tarot. I do like the cards, and I do think that as a be your own therapist kind of methodology, or like you know, intervention, like because when we talk about emotional, like personal emotional development, a lot of people start talking about archetypes, you know, for gosh, how do you concisely kind of sum up what an archetype is? Okay, I don't know, guys, Google it. So we're talking about archetypes. We're talking about like major arcana are gonna be those archetypal energies, those imagery. It's almost like a meme, but it's not. So archetype is gonna be hero, villain. or king, queen, emperor, empress. Those archetypal, like, what does the devil conjure up? Like, that means something to us. That imagery, that concept, it's an archetype that means a whole bunch. It's like these, and they're core foundational themes, but theme doesn't sum it up well enough. Archetype is good shit. Like, get into that. Archetypes are incredible. You can look at archetypes from a psychological standpoint. You could look at archetypes from a interrelational standpoint. You can look at archetypes from like a really broad, big picture scope in history. Like, this character in history represents the tyrant, and this person in history represents a magician or a high priestess. Like, this is imagery, this is words, this is an archetype, is something that it means so much. Like, when you think of a magician as like a big picture thematic, that can mean so much. Healer, seer, it's just optical illusion, trickster. Like, to say it's a theme is not enough. But the tarot does also talk about themes. So a lot of the minor arcana, I mean, there's thematic elements to the archetypes as well, because you can have like an emperor that has certain themes that are in common with the justice card, or in common with such and such king from the minor arcana. So we have these themes, but like within the archetypes, we have the themes. Outside of the archetypes, we have other themes, such as situations of the mind, or situations from like a sex drive point of view, from like an animalistic creative drive point of view, passion. We have themes of earth, material, abundance, wealth, security. We're talking about different phases in processes. We're pointing at things through the lens of also astrology, which is just this really, really old idea. And like, whether you're totally invested in it and it's like your way of spirituality, that's the way you frame things, or whether it's just holding reverence for how cool it is that something that old is still around, like that's cool. So like, that's taken into the tarot. I said phases of processes, and so like, we have themes, and then we have themes of processes. So you'll and what I'm getting at is just that the process of naming, relating to, identifying with all of these archetypes, all of these themes of processes, all of these processes, it broadens our emotional intelligence to look at so many other things than just that narcissistic inside of our own head, like, all I can see is myself and all the things I hate about myself. So when we are reading the cards, if we can really take a deep breath and focus on clearing our minds, it's challenging that brain circuitry to loosen up its grip a little bit and look at the way that these messages or these themes and this archetypal content is interwoven, and it challenges you to look at things from a different perspective. So that focus of what's going on in my life right now, as you're seeking answers or as you're seeking clarity from the cards, like, that doesn't change. The thing you're seeking, or like the bone you're chewing on, doesn't change. What you're asking for is that you see it from a different perspective. You see it maybe for what it really is. And I'm not saying that like some random spread of cards is gonna be the God's honest truth. It's never that direct. That's the point of tarot. It's to open, it's to broaden, force open your mind, so that the content that you're exposing yourself to is not the same bullshit rhetoric. you know. Maybe we have a hopes and fears position with an upside down tower. And the tower in the tarot is an archetypal illustration of that very human, universal. These are all human, universally human archetypes. So the tower is representative of the experience we've all had, or will have if we haven't yet, because we're very young or isolated, of when a situation, a relationship, a way of thinking about something is destroyed, is obliterated from the foundation up, like collapse. And I mean, some people can look at it, and when you look at that idea from like many different perspectives, there's a lot to that, right? We can have that come to us as a liberation. We can have that come to us as seeing things for what they really are. Or, I mean, it can also come as like, prepare yourself for destruction. Your life is breaking up, like something, you know, some relationship is over, it's obliterated, it's destroyed, or it's coming, you know, like, and if that's in your hopes and fears, that's not a straightforward answer, right? Like, you could just leave it at, you know, I worry that the worst is going to happen, or that everything's going to fall apart. And yeah, you can leave it there, but you can expand on that. There's so much room for expansion. And so when I'm challenging my narcissism and my relationship with others and their narcissism, it's so vital that I do look at the cards. But I need to stop like doing the social masturbation of just like exclusively watching other people, because, you know, like you get them saying things like, oh, this person's on their way, they're waiting for you to level up, and then it had to happen. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely, I mean, and honest to God, like, that's true every fucking time. So so it's like, I guess it just occurred to me, and it felt gross, and it's just like, that needs to not be something I spend my time doing. I definitely need to be using cards. I definitely need to be looking at life situations or life problems or issues or situations from a perspective other than just the inside of, you know, my head. Lord knows that's not always a super safe, you know, cohabitable place to be. So yeah, do cards. I kind of wonder if someday I'll do like a little tutorial, like an overview of the cards as I understand them. I don't know, I feel myself kind of like, I brought the cards in here so that I could, and now it's just, I don't really want to. I think that's a really personal journey. If somebody's interested in that, they need to introduce themselves to the deck and take that journey, and you know, whatever websites or books, you know, we don't, you know, if you can touch hands on a book, you know, like, that's gonna be what that means, you know. So and you're not gonna get the same websites and the same articles and the same books and the same magazines that I got when I was learning, and it's supposed to be that way. So I guess I wanted to put that there for me to just say, Alicia, do foster that love and respect for the cards, and the way that within these decks there is time and space and honor for all things that occur in the human experience. Do use the cards, Alicia, but don't spend so much of your time seeking that soothing, that don't do that self-soothing that way. Like, if you need to self-soothe, you have your decks. Okay.